there have been a lot of people that have been affected by distracted driving.
Yeah.
So again, I introduced it last year. It didn't go anywhere. It's a new session. It's a new assembly. So I reintroduced it through Transportation Committee. Subcommittee, no problems there. Everyone was really on board with it. Public safety, of course, insurance companies, they would like to see people drive safe because, and I think we lost. I think I had maybe a couple votes in committee that were no's, but for the most part, it passed. And truthfully, I thought that this was just an easy common sense bill.
Yeah.
But so the process is, when we have a bill that's made it through committee, you go to leadership and you say, this is an important bill to me, which all bills I introduce are important to me, or I wouldn't do it. To go to leadership and talk about that. And then the bill comes up in caucus. So just the meeting of our party. And I was surprised that there was so many different opposing views. So right now, what's in place, there's a no texting and driving bill. This is essentially the same thing, only it expands it to everything. You can't, Facebook, you can't read your email, you can't watch videos, because back then when the texting bill passed, they didn't have all this stuff on phones. It was, either hold your phone or you text. So anyway, I thought that this was a great replacement. Apparently it was tried before I got to the legislature as well, because actually 2 other people introduced it before I got there, and it failed both times. So some of the reasons why. Some people just do not like government,
regulation at all.
Right. And they think that any ticket is a tax on the people. And I think you're like that. I think that is your view. Because I've heard you say, if you're speeding, the speed cams, you don't like that.
Yeah, I sure don't.
And so, you say that.
And the mayor of Fort Dodge has come in and said, yes, we have those speed cameras to fund 2 different police officers. I think we do need more police officers. I think we ought to find a better way to do it. But I am opposed to, yes, raising revenue under the guise of public safety, which the speed cameras were initially sold as. Nobody at the city would admit it was a fundraising device just to employ more police officers. But they came around finally and said, yes, we need this money because we need a couple more police officers. I accept that, but I still don't like using cameras like that.
Well, a lot of people think that anytime you get pulled over and get a ticket, it's just government raising revenue.
Yeah,
I disagree. It's a punishment. It's a punishment for an activity that can harm other people. And you know what? I know that there are probably people listening that take that view. So I'm going to contrast it with the seatbelt law. If you don't want to wear your seatbelt, I really want you to wear your seatbelt. I'll tell you what, in 2005, I had a rollover accident, completely rollover. It went forward and landed on the tires, and we had our seatbelts on. We opened the door. I had my Jacob in the back seat, and I had his friend in the back seat.
Oh, no.
Everyone had their seatbelts on. We flipped over, back on the tires. We all opened the doors and walked out. Seatbelts definitely save lives.
Was that here in Iowa?
Yeah, down 17. It was on a Saturday afternoon. Road was clear. What, were you partying or what were you doing? No, absolutely not. So I was going down to Des Moines to I was taking the boys down to Des Moines because my friend Diana was coming in from the airport, and we were going to meet in Des Moines and have dinner, and then I was going to, I think, switch up Adam, who was her son.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it was between Madrid and Luther. And it, I just said, hey, don't worry. Everyone's good, but we had an accident and I need you to come pick us up.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know that seatbelts save lives, but the only person you're going to hurt if you don't wear it is you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. when you're looking at your phone and you're driving down the street, you may hurt you and you may hurt someone who's innocently driving along.
That's true. There have been people killed because they were texting in Iowa, in Webster County.
Yep.
And you're right. The words I hate to hear, we need this for public safety, because public safety kind of takes any conversation out of the game. Oh, it's public safety. We're trying to do something good. If you ask a question, you're a bad person or something. I don't agree with that. There's a lot of spending that gets done just to under the guise of public safety, but it's actually there for another reason. I think hiring 2 extra police officers is a good reason, but the people of Fort Dodge should know that if that's what we're going to do. And I'm certainly opposed in the case of speed cameras. Half the money goes to out-of-state companies who just run these speed camera operations.
I wish we could run our own speed cameras and take all
too.
of that revenue for Iowa. I mean,
that would make everybody feel better.
Yeah.
It makes sense to take advantage of technology. I mean, it does.
Yeah.
Police can't be everywhere. So it's actually a good thing.
That might be a good business for someone in Iowa to start up, get the contracts.
There you go.
Because they would win over a lot of cities, I think. And, well, I guess cities are the only ones that do speed cameras, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, the Lynn County Sheriff,
Sheriff.
The Lynn County Sheriff in Lynn County's where Cedar Rapids is.
Yeah, I've been through there.
Yeah.
Never got a ticket.
That's where my son lives. It's an area of, if you count Hawthorne and all those places around, it's probably 130,000 people. But anyway, the interstate runs right through Cedar Rapids, and they have speed camera cars. And I've been busted a couple of times going down and see my son, because my driving habits will not be modified, I guess. Anyway, the point is,
I don't like to read while I'm driving.
I don't want to do that. The point is that Cedar Rapids was ready to ban the cameras. There was a lot of pushback from these cameras. And the sheriffs wanted to go into closed session just before they voted. And everybody was on board with getting rid of the cameras. Well, it came back out and everybody was on board with keeping the cameras. And apparently the Lynn County Sheriff was telling them, in my 36 years of law enforcement experience, I've seen lives saved, and he gave a very passionate argument. Well, we found out the reporters of the Cedar Rapids Gazette looked into it, and a good percentage of the sheriff department's budget came from those speed cameras every year. So I don't know if his passion was really directed at public safety. It was more a monetary thing. And that's what we got to be aware of.
Well, I've got constituents who, since this was introduced, they've reached out to me as well and said, I'm in a biking group, or there are many constituent groups that want this passed. And it truly is bikers. It's probably the biggest part. But actually the person that came up to me initially with the problem was a gal was on her phone and was driving down the 2-lane between one of the smaller towns around here and never looked up from her phone. And he had to go off onto the side of the road, and she was on the side, and she didn't even know that he was off.
Make no mistake about it. I'm in favor of this law. This I see in the paper this morning, and I bring it up to you because you have to know your enemy, is that some people were opposed to the bill because it thought minorities would be affected, that racist white cops apparently would be more inclined to stop minority groups. And that plays into the whole white people are hateful and twisted line of thinking. And the people who make that argument should be exposed for the blockheads that they are. And they're not a friend of yours, Ann. I know you try to be friends with everybody because that's kind of your way. You're a friendly person, and you have a great personality. You're a friendly person. I know you're a person of great commitment and passion for healthcare issues, and that's terrific. But I don't think you've come around to my way of thinking that these people on the Democratic Party, some of them are truly twisted. And this is one example. I mean, I know you don't want to hear that, but that's exactly it. I mean, who thinks that way? Who would make an assumption like that about another race? You and I were down at Juneteenth. Did I see any twisted people down there that were different from me? No, I didn't. No, I had some fish and ribs from Clayton's place, and it was great.
Oh my gosh, the food was so good.
Yeah, it was.
Again, shout out to those guys, because that was a great event and a great way to promote unity. in Fort Dodge, and man, the food was fabulous.
Yes, it was.
So, but I want to say that is not the only pushback I got. In fact, I
know that.
I have a friend who said, "Man, I'm just against that. I'm against ticketing people for whatever they're doing in their car on their own."
Are they also opposed to ticketing people who are drunk and driving down the wrong side of the road? My God, where's the line, really?
Yeah, and that's how I felt, and those are kind of the arguments I gave, because we know that this has now surpassed drunk driving as a leading cause of accidents, distracted driving. So then I've got some people saying, well, people and not my constituents, but people from around the state. I got some emails saying again that this is just a way for government to bring in more money. And what about people who are eating French fries down the road, and drop a fry? Well, seriously, you do a lot of things. If you're looking for your M&Ms.
I have eaten French fries while driving down the road, and I will do it again, But I can reach for French fries and still keep my eyes on the road.
And that's the thing. When you take your eyes off the road for even, 10 seconds, it's like going down a football field and you have missed all of that on the road.
Right. I will make an admission when we could first text. I tried texting when I was driving 60 or 70 miles an hour down Highway 20. And I'm embarrassed to admit I did it more than once, but I veered off the road a couple of times. I thought, what am I doing?
Right.
What am I doing? The way I drive, I'm the one that's certainly going to get killed out of this mess, and I may hurt somebody else.
Right.
I don't want to die, and I certainly don't want to hurt anybody else. So if there's law against texting in that regard, I'll be happy to support it. Or, as you say, expanding it a little bit to do that. I don't like the approach that, we want to keep people safe. That sounds kind of paternalist. I'm always on the lookout for that sort of thing. But I'm very disappointed. Did the opposition come more from Republican libertarians like myself?
Yes.
Or did it come? Really?
Yeah, that was the chief opposition.
Give me their number. I'll straighten them out.
Seriously, most of my committee voted for it. So it was not on the transportation committee that the opposition came from. Those votes are public. But I also talked to my friend who I sit next to. She's a Democrat, and she said, how's that bill coming? Because there are some people who are for it and some people are against it. And I said, we're 14 votes short. And so it's
14 votes, really?
Yep, 14 votes short. So it's not going to come through. And she said, yeah, well, and we were just talking about the same reasons that you and I were just talking about. And she said, those are the same things I heard in there. So I think that this was a bipartisan. If you support it, you support it. If you don't, you don't. You know what I mean? It wasn't a party issue. It was.
And by the way, I rip on Democrats pretty regularly, as you know. But down at Juneteenth, I saw Nikki Conrad, Democratic supervisor for Webster County. Spoke with her for a little bit. Even have a picture somewhere of her and I.
I think it might be your profile picture. I'm not positive.
Is it my profile picture? Well, I long to return to the days when it wasn't a sin to belong to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party.
Right.
But, Trump drove Democrats particularly insane. And I keep telling all my Democratic friends, look, he's the president now. He's not going to be president forever.
And I have to say, I think, I don't particularly think of our supervisors or city elected officials as one party or the other. I just know that we all have to work together to do a job. I have to work together at the state level to work with them to make sure we do the best we can do for Fort Dodge. And I think everyone's in it for the right reason. There's not a city elected official or supervisor that I've worked with that, party doesn't matter. And I also want to say that most of, we've got a few on the right, a few on the left, and 95% of our bills are bipartisanly supported. So we do work together in Iowa.
I believe that.
Yeah.
And, the idea that Darrell Beal is a perfectly nice guy. He was senator for 2 terms before Cranenbrink took the seat. It wasn't like Darrell Beal had to go. It was just the climate was right for a Republican to take the seat, and Tim did. But there's some Democrats who don't even talk to me anymore, and I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. I'm sorry, that's the way it is.
Tim's doing a great job. I mean, he is really mostly, he's been in some type of leadership just about since the time he's been in, and it's financial leadership, and the state is in great financial shape because of that leadership. That's not I support it, but I couldn't come up with those numbers on my own. Healthcare policy, that's where my expertise is. But I think that that was a good change when it was made.
I think so. I think I didn't know Tim at the time. Really. I mean, I'd met him and we talked on the air, of course, because he was a candidate at the time. But he's a good man.
Yep, absolutely.
And I was very impressed by his statement of purpose on Saturday at Eggs and Issues. What sticks out in your mind about Eggs and Issues?
I thought this was a good wrap up. We all had something very different to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse focused on the ag issues. Tim obviously focused on the budget issues and the free speech issues, and then I focused on all the medical issues that we were dealing with, and then going forward what we need to work on. And I've told you before, my main one of my main priorities going back is medical malpractice tort reform.
Yeah, because
that's going to get more people. That we are losing physicians because of liability insurance.
Mm-hmm.
We're losing hospitals. We've lost 26 OB units since 2005, I think 2008. We've lost that many OB units, and that's in the Iowa report of the Iowa Department of Public Health report, and 18 of those units cited liability costs. That was the reason they were closing.
A high school classmate of mine, a woman, and she was a girl then, of course, she had quite a crush on me there for a while. And she became a physician, an OBGYN specialist,
Mm-hmm.
and she was down in Texas. Boy, I really screwed up when I didn't pay more attention to her, I tell you. But I'm telling this story because she retired early, like in her early 50s, because she didn't want to pay the insurance that was required of her. And in Texas, of course, you get a lot of people in the country illegally, and following them around are lawyers. So if there was a problem with someone in the country illegal's birth, there was a lawyer right there claiming racism and all these other things. My friend from school was not a racist, ever was in her life.
Right.
But it was easy to make that charge and get some money out of an insurance company and raise the premium on the physician who was my friend, or not my friend specifically, but people like her. So she just, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. I know that you're a medical person, and it's something that the lawyers like Nevin would really like to see happen is to have tort reform. Is tort reform what we're talking about? Or are you talking about something else?
No, you are completely opposite. The
All
lawyers do not want tort reform.
The lawyers do, or excuse me, the lawyers do not
Yes.
want tort reform.
Just
I beg your pardon. I misspoke, and thank you for correcting me.
Every single entity in the state, they register on bills,
Right.
And everyone is registered in favor of the hard cap on non-economic damages, except for trial lawyers. That's the honest truth.
As soon as I was out of my mouth, I knew I'd made a mistake. Later in the day, I get tired, and it's time for
I do too.
It's time. It's time for me to go back to the home and have a nap. Representative Ann Meyer has been our guest. Thank you for coming in. You came in on last minute notice, and thank you so much for doing that. We look forward to talking with you again. Ann Meyer's been our guest. It's 5:00. This is KBFD and Fort Dodge.
This is Gary Rima.